Are NFTs dead? Well, it sure does look that way from the outside looking in. I mean, Bloomberg is reporting a 97% collapse in trading volume. And you want to know what the lowest three trading volume days in OpenSea was for 2022? Well, it's been the last 3 days. So it's not looking good. Public sentiment continues to worsen. The NFT brand is completely toxic. But are NFTs dead? Absolutely not. In fact, I think the next 10 to 20 years is going to be an absolute renaissance for digital assets. Obviously, NFTs are part of the equation. It's a technology. Technology can't die. And so super excited to see where it all goes. In today's conversation, we dive deep into what the next year of the NFT market might look like. One bit of news that was breaking yesterday that I do want to cover before we get into the conversation is that the SEC has launched a probe into the Bored Ape Yacht Club creator Yuga Labs. I think this is phenomenal news for the space because both outcomes are going to be a positive, net positive for the space as a whole. Look, either Yuga is completely cleared and the SEC determines that they were not unregistered securities and they're not going to be labeling them as a security. And I think that's going to cause an avalanche, an absolute tidal wave of smart money that's been sitting on the sidelines, going to be coming into the space because they're going to feel safe investing in these crypto assets now. And if not, if Yuga does get fined or they declare some wrongdoing or some misclassification of these assets, then we have the regulatory clarity that the space is in desperate need of. Same thing's going to happen. All of a sudden, regulatory frameworks are going to be put into place, and all of this money that's been sitting on the sidelines, eager to get in, they just have not had the appetite to do so. They don't necessarily want to speculate on cartoon images of monkeys or whatever. That's going to be flooding into the space. So regardless, I think the news is probably the most bullish news that we've had in a long, long time. Really, really excited to see what the outcome of it is. But either way, I think it's going to be bullish for the space. I think it's really positive news. So let's get right into the conversation. It was a good one. Let's get it. All right, everybody, we got Digitaljeff, no introduction needed. Filmmaker, creative storyteller, director of the Doxed miniseries, and we got Sheepy, one of the great minds in Web3. I don't know if I want to dox what you do in real life, Sheepy, but you do some interesting stuff. We can get into that. But one of the legends of the Metaverse Discord. And so, yeah, fellas, basically NFT market's not looking good. I got the Dune Analytics up right now. Yesterday was the lowest volume day on OpenSea in 15 months. It seems like that all that's left on NFT Twitter is a bunch of shit posters, and so I just want to get into it. Sheepy, let's start with you, man. What are your thoughts right now, October 10th, NFT market?
October 10th. It's been interesting. As I said, I kind of look into the market every week on my stream and go through. And as you said, it's the lowest day in 15 months. That is quite interesting because projects are still minting. There is still projects coming and going. I'm seeing some top quality stuff, but I really think we're starting to come out the other side, like open the curtains now. We've gone past the free mint meta, the people gambling a bit more, and now we're actually getting to the quality side of things. It's interesting to see that the volume is so low, yet you see big names still minting out, selling out.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. It's like I think quality will always still prevail, right? I think when I think of a bear market, I sort of have a positive approach, right? I call it the great cleanser. And so what hopefully we'll see less of is the grifters, the bad actors, the bullshit low effort projects that are just strictly influence Ponzi's with an intention to rug, et cetera. So, I mean, but Jeff, what are you thinking, man, nowadays? Like, I know, I don't know if your DGen days are still going or if they're behind you. What do you think about the NFT market?
I'm still a DGen, bro. I DGen to a project a few days ago without even looking at it. But, you know, that comes... It's less. I'm less of a DJ than I was even 6 months ago, but I think personally, like on me, I feel like this has been a great opportunity for me to really learn the space and really get to see what's really going on, who's actually building and who's actually creating things and who's actually about it. You know, because for a while it felt like you couldn't catch up, and it was not healthy. At least for me, it wasn't. Staying up, 20 hours a day and trying to see what's going on. And I think this is, for me, has been a great, I don't know if it's me personally or is it it's part of the bear market, being part of a bear market where you can, pace your day. And I'm still optimistic day to day. I feel even more excited about what I'm doing in Web3 personally. I love being part of the grind. I love being part of the building process. I love being at ground zero, building something. So this is an exciting time for me, man. The way I see it is a great opportunity for me to really change the trajectory of not only my generation but future generations. And the greatest transfer of wealth is coming, so I'm gonna be ready for that.
I mean, the one thing is that, you know, and I was doing this research yesterday, but when you talk about the greatest transfer of wealth in human history, that's happening. Like, that's undisputable, right? And so we have in the U.S. alone, we have 71 million boomers, right? Boomers are people, I think, within the age of, I think, above 52, right? I think boomers starts like 52, so they're aging, 62 to 74, something like that. And the 72 million U.S. boomers own 1/7 of the entire assets of the world. They own $70+ trillion worth of wealth. And so it's already in progress. Like, the next 2-3 decades, you know, as the boomers age up, all this wealth is going to be transferred to millennials and below. I think a lot of that wealth is going to be on the backs of blockchain tech. I just think it's an inevitability. What Gen Z kid today is going to be buying gold? You know, what Gen Z? I mean, like, it's the game. The rules are changing. Money's changing. It's clearly going digital. We see all the governments in the world exploring this, exploring CBDCs, et cetera. So I think that's right, man. I mean, Sheepy, would you say that that's accurate?
No, I think that completely. I said, like, I grew up on a generation. I played World of Warcraft growing up, played games. I grew up on FIFA, playing COD, like, valuing digital assets. And that's what made me realize. But I actually read a similar stat yesterday that kids nowadays spend more money on digital things than buying a bike. They'd rather get skins on Fortnite than a bike to go ride outside. This is a generation now that are the ages of maybe 7 to 15 that really value. They think, I spend most of my time online playing games, Roblox, Fortnite. That this is where they'd rather invest their money and capital. These are people, when they grow up, start getting jobs, start earning that money and spending it. They're going to value those digital assets a lot more than maybe when we were younger, getting a new bike, getting a toy set or something. It's like everything is now online. And I think that's where the big shift is going to come in, is when this generation comes into the workforce, comes into the age where they're starting to spend their disposable income. And this is where we'll see a big shift. And then the classic investors, the Middle Ages, the millennials that are then older, are the one building the products, building stuff to send then. And it is going to just be digital assets. And I think blockchain is primed for that completely.
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, like, one thing that I always find funny, especially when it comes to NFTs, like, they get shit on and honestly with good reason, right? Like, anytime there's negative energy around NFTs from the mainstream, my friends, whatever, I'm like, I get it, man. You know, like, there's been so many scammers and bad actors that I cannot blame you for thinking that. But then I look at gamers who shit on NFTs, and then I look at the most successful games on the planet today are all free to play. Fortnite made $6 billion last year. Selling what? Cosmetic items. Just nobody asked what the utility is. The utility is that you're now able to communicate who you are within a digital community, right? A digital environment. The only difference now is NFTs. Like, you actually get to own them. They're with you on the blockchain. Now you have a highly liquid asset potentially that if you want to exit the game, it's like all of those achievements and shit that you've made in the game, that at least they can now be sold if they're not soul bound. And through interoperability standards that are being developed right now, being led by Tim Sweeney and others, it's like now you're able to bring these items into other games. And so, like, it's so painfully obvious to me. And so, like, what I think just needs to switch is the narrative and the education. That's like one of the big things that we're obviously doing here with Metaverse. But I mean, Jeff, Jeff has 4 kids, man. He started having kids when he was 7, something like that.
17, but yeah. So my 4 kids understand this digital ownership. They understand it so well, so natively, because they've been buying assets since, I'll say, for at least the last 10 years, and it's cost me more than anybody. But they got the idea that they can now own an asset. They're actually MP3 holders, by the way.
Let's go.
And so they understand this idea of being able to have something that's valuable in their digital lives. And when you start thinking about, like, what's more valuable, you said it, like, what's more valuable, a bike, right, that you used to get, or a digital asset. I think we're at a point where even adults, not only kids, but even adults, are starting to value our digital assets more than what we own in real life. And the fact that we can track it through the blockchain is, for me, something just like it's an easy layup. And when I explain it to my wife, and that aspect is when she became a believer, because my wife's like my wife's like the one that always challenges me. She'll just challenge me.
They question everything.
Yeah, they question everything, which is fun. It's fun to have those conversations, But I think when it really clicked, and it gave me more confidence when she started believing this, when she started realizing like, oh yeah, like people value like a verified check mark on Instagram almost more than anything. Like, so these digital assets now, have become so native into our lives that we forget what a digital asset even is. It's just right there in front of us.
Dude, like I've been saying, I think, in my opinion, like right now, one of the reasons it's so difficult for people to grasp is it is a foreign concept, right? Especially like, all of us, all of us are sort of in tune with it. But telling somebody like, hey, there's digital ownership over this item, ownership over this digital item, it's very hard to grasp. What I'm saying is like kids being born today, even younger than your kids, Jeff, like it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be hard to grasp the concept of a digital item without ownership, right? Like in the future, like what, and so it's just going to be a shift that takes place over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. But bro, like digital assets to me, I'm just so bullish on. It is just the way that we communicate now. A lot of people think it's sort of taboo, so they stay away from this line of thinking. But to me, it's like also valuable as a status symbol. It's like, why do we wear the things that we wear? Why am I wearing this LA hat right now? Sheepy wearing the New York. Like everything that we own is in sense, in a way to communicate. Bernard Arnault, fourth richest person in the world, LVMH. Why? To buy purses, shirts, shoes, sneakers, watches, car, all the shit that we buy to communicate status and communicate who we are within like a greater community. That's all going to be digital now because it can be verified. I think that's fascinating. Sheepy, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I totally agree. And I think the biggest shift is people understanding the digital ownership. And that's saying that, yes, these are limited. And I think as soon as these brands start saying, look, we can eliminate fakes, we can eliminate ownership. My biggest example that I use is that I said, mention video games. I play FIFA. Anybody can own that card. Then you have SoRare, digital fantasy NFT sports, where you own a 1 of 1,000. It literally says 1 of 1,000 of this player. No one else can own it. And it's these simple things to get the mindset shifting. Because once people start saying, okay, look, I am a 1 of 1,000 owner, and it's clear enough, that's when we'll start to see the mindset think that, okay, this is valuable. Look, I am a special because I own this. But I still think, as you mentioned, is the big blocker of the taboo of the NFT, calling it an NFT. I said, we've seen Apple's foray into it recently, Disney calling it digital collectibles, different ways of approaching it. And I think we'll see some like very ingenious and very smart ways companies will rebrand it. I bet you Apple will come out with their own name, which we haven't thought of, which will be known as a blockchain digital collectible on their own blockchain. It will be coming, but when that comes, that's when the shift will come in. Dude,
that is such a great thought. I mean, we've seen Reddit come into the space. Reddit NFTs, by the way, are sort of booming, right? Because like now this massive community on Reddit, it's sort of like the same way, but like Reddit has been historically anti-NFT, and I don't just mean like Reddit as a whole. I mean like these cryptocurrency subs, like even /r/cryptocurrency, like they all kind of hate NFTs, but now they're starting to warm up to the idea. They're like, okay, this is a way that we represent our digital identities amongst this greater community. That's pretty cool. So they're kind of flying. But to your point, Sheepy, Reddit's calling it digital collectibles. That's a fascinating thought, man. Like about Apple, you're right. They're going to come in. They're not. I think actually that word NFT is sort of going to be phased out, kind of like the cyberspace, back in the 90s of the internet. Yeah. And I think it's probably the right time to do it, just because the brand of NFT is so unbelievably toxic now. In the future, I just think they're going to be like, hey, your digital items, and they're secured by a blockchain. And so you're right. Apple will probably have a terminology or whatever to do that. Marketing masters. I mean, what do you think about that, Jeff? I know you're still NFT. I'm a big fan of. Do we have to rebrand it?
I love NFTs. I love the word NFTs. It's just so. I think it's just so part of culture. And whether you love it or hate it, like I think what's crazy though. I always tell people like it's not like NFTs versus like or it's not the blockchain versus the rest of the world. It's just like we're gonna have both. Both are gonna win. Like you're gonna be able to have your real life experiences. You're gonna have your metaverse experiences, and they're gonna have use cases for everything. We're gonna have use cases for everything. I'm very bullish on one. Obviously, like all these AAA games that are being made, that are coming out in these next coming years. But also, I'm very bullish on on the digital aspect of education, because I used to be a high school teacher, and I know how limited it is to teach. Like you only have so much resources. So there's going to be use cases for everything, and I think once we kind of like remove that like negative branding or idea of what NFTs, I think NFTs will be something that I think like in 10, 15 years we'll see as like this nice, beautiful word or beautiful saying that represents something great. But yeah, I'm actually the one that will go to battle for the word NFT, man. I don't know. I love it.
I mean, it's short, it's simple, it's better than saying like a digital collectible verified by a blockchain. I mean, like either way, if there is ever a sort of like worldwide rebranding, I think it has to be like a very short, unique term. But man,
there probably will. I agree with Sheepy. Apple's gonna come up with some beautiful branding, and we'll fall in love with that. The world will fall in love with it. But then the day is gonna be NFTs. Yeah.
So here's my question. I mean, where does the market go from here? Like, I think the market during the next 12 months is going to look drastically different than I made a tweet today. Maybe we'll put it right here on the screen, but it said something like the 2021 NFT bull run will never return, much like the 2017 ICO craze will never return. I think the next bull run is going to be on the backs of something new, something innovative. The way that we're approaching this, for example, with MV3 is like, we don't want people to buy our NFTs. We want people to fall in love with our characters, our storyline, our greater community, etc. What that will happen is eventually that will funnel people into the NFTs because they want to, partake in the upside of the IP. So that's kind of like the way that we're thinking about it. So the next bull run is going to be on the entertainment properties underneath MV3, in my opinion. But what do you guys think? Like, what will the next bull run look like, if it even comes?
I agree with you. I think it's going to come with different kind of tech. I think AR is going to be a big play into this. But even Jeff, you playing off your education, what you said, one thing we've discussed, one of the best use cases, imagine a college, all textbooks. You buy a new textbook at the start of a term, $200 it costs you. What can you do after it? It's difficult to sell on. If that is $200 minimum for a bunch of textbooks going through. If they start integrating them onto blockchain, you can sell on that textbook to someone else. The college, the university can have royalties on it, the original publisher. And as what we're doing with MV3, trying to bring the value from the entertainment space, we'll start seeing all these other brands attack the different spaces, which will then bring people to the mass NFT space, Web3 blockchain space, either through your education, just your simple textbooks are on blockchain. Then you see, what does that mean? Through the entertainment, what does it mean to have this character? I think it will come from these niche areas, these big corporations coming in and really targeting it. It's no longer going to be broad, have the same, where we saw the same roadmap every time. People are now going to go, okay, I've got my specific vocation, my specific job. How can I onboard people into that area? And that's why I think all the innovations are going to come from, I said, people like Chipotle coming in, Starbucks, brands, and it's not going to come the traditional route. It will sneak up on you, but we'll know when it's here because we'll suddenly see this wave coming in of using new tech, people having crypto wallets, people having AR devices on their phone linked to blockchain. It's going to, I said, not come the way on Twitter. I think Twitter is going to be ending soon.
Twitter X.
But then I don't know where it's going to come from. That's a question I always ask myself. Where's going to be the next resurgence of NFTs? Where is it going to be? Is it going to be on a different platform? Is it going to be Instagram, Snapchat? It's difficult to say.
Hopefully it'll be a brand new platform, man. I'm like, because it's funny, we call it Web3. I'm like, sometimes it's not really Web3. It's like a Web2 sort of meme forward community just chatting about the blockchain, right? Like it's all happening on Twitter. It's all happening on Discord. It's Reddit. Exactly. It's just people creating memes and shit posting, try to build some influence on the backs of like this new sort of culture emerging, but it's not really Web3. Most of what's happening is not really Web3. There's some Web3 components. And so there's a lot of ground to sort of build. But Sheepy, you mentioned royalties. I want to talk about royalties for a few minutes, and then we have some people in the audience. If you want to come up, just call in live. We want to hear your questions. We want to hear your comments. Chime in. But one of the big debates of this week, and honestly, just like the last few months, is this royalty debate. Because you can't. One of the magic components of NFTs to me is that the royalty structure, but you can't bake it in at the smart contract level. So what happens from here? What do you guys think about the argument or about the conversation at hand about 0% royalties?
I mean, I would say I'm completely against it as a person, as a creator. I've been a creator all my life, and I think as an artist, you want to have that in place somehow. And I think if I was to build a platform, I would, very similar like OpenSea, make it almost mandatory for it to be. I mean, it's up to the artist to decide whether it's 0% all the way to 10% or whatever that is, whatever that number feels right. But I think that's the part of the magic of Web3 and why I personally just love the fact that we can have these smart contracts in place to protect the artists. So I don't know. I think that's something we'll figure out. There's one of the reasons I love MV3 and a lot of the projects that I've covered, especially for dogs, is like people are laying out blueprints for different industries of how Web3 and blockchain can be used. And I think the next bull run will come off these blueprints. There'll be a blueprint for every industry, and then there'll be these form of companies that are being built upon this blueprint.
No, I agree completely. And I saw a tweet coming out that said, okay, with 0% royalties, are we just a glorified Kickstarter then? We've removed pretty much one of the best uses of blockchain of allowing the creator there. But then some of the other debates and tweets are saying, look, royalties should be chosen, but royalties can also come from the owners and creatives. For example, if you want to support an artist and buy on secondary, maybe you do want royalties to go to them as a part. And you have communities that obviously, because it's not enforceable at a smart chain level, you could technically always trade something without royalties. But people choose to. Maybe people want to. We'll start seeing certain types of NFTs, maybe always art, music, creative NFTs will have royalties because that, as you said, a blueprint that's been built, that's been followed. But then maybe we see a slightly less utility one. For example, I've just used an example, maybe Spotify drops something. They might not want royalties on that.
Correct.
And as I said, the blueprints are being built at the moment, and we'll start to see this diversification across. But I think royalty is a great idea. As I said, as you mentioned, it's one of the best use cases of blockchain. Traceability, always given back to a creator, is you haven't just got rid of it and it's gone forever. But as I said, it's going to evolve in how the creator wants it and also the consumers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's well said. Like, one of the things that I find a little bit tragic if 0% royalties kind of take form or hit critical mass is the artist, right? Like, I think for projects, it's a little bit different. But I think long term, it's a horrible, horrible recipe for both projects and consumers. I think the consumers are thinking short term, okay, we can skirt the royalty, save a little bit of money on this transaction. But the reason that it's bad for consumers in the long term is because, think about it. You're a project. You've relied on that royalty percentage as an income stream, right? All of a sudden, you have to find other income streams. No problem. Every project should be trending towards that. But then, what is the onus of the why? It's almost like the holders become a little less important because you don't really care if somebody's buying or selling your NFTs, as much as before when it was a potent, profitable revenue stream. So I just think for the consumer, it's negative long term. So a lot of people think it's going to hit critical mass. It's coming. It's like the next wave. I'm not so sure. I think it might stick for a couple months and then we'll go right back to royalties. And I do think the greater community as a culture are going to band together and sort of back royalties. But there is one use case in which I feel like it is important for the consumer to have a choice, right? Like, I think if, say, a project rugs or say some really, really negative shit comes out about a project and the floor is going crazy, like I'm not going to name names, but we've seen it in the past, like crazy negative controversies, and a project will pull in millions of dollars on the backs of all that crazy volume going on, right? I don't think that's necessarily fair. And in an example like that, I do think the consumer should have a choice. Ultimately, the market decides, and where I stand, it's like, who cares what happens? We got to be ready to adapt. That's kind of the way I go.
Exactly. The one thing I don't like, though, are these big influencers on Twitter trying to preach and trying to push forward 0% royalties. We've seen it recently. We've seen these big, large project founders going, not naming names, but I think we all know, like, I'm pushing 0% royalties, and they're acting on their pedestal to be like, you should all do it too. But that's such a bad narrative to push across. It's, as you mentioned, should be at a decision. And because we live in an echo chamber on Twitter, in the Discord space, people follow what these influencers say. And I think it's just kind of maybe negative or maybe not the best way the space should be. I said you should have more decision on what is going on.
Yeah. I want to welcome ATL and you're live with us, bro. How you doing? What's up, man? How you doing? We
How's
were
it
about
going?
to get into, because Sheepy made a good point. I want to talk about the current influencers in the space. It seems like the shit posters are the ones getting the engagement right now. I want to get everybody's thoughts, but AT Alien, GM to you, my friend. How you
brother.
feeling today? What's on your mind?
Good, man. Wanted to get into like the gaming NFTs. I feel like that's such like a big market that doesn't like what we're doing, but already like has use cases that like translate. You know, the games that my kid plays, like Fortnite or NBA 2K, they all deal with skins. They all deal with VC. These are all concepts that are like, you know, it's everyday life to them. But the people who, like, I'm 42. There's a lot of people my age that just don't understand that. So I'm trying to figure out, like, how are we going to be able to get the, like, a mass adoption into this huge market that I feel like once we get into gaming and people see what they can do with that, I think the use cases that are coming up with, like, Polygon being on Disney and the DraftKings, these are all different things that like they're slowly implementing. This is where mass adoption, I think, really comes in, where they implement it without us really seeing it. This is something I heard you say before, and it's the only way I feel like that, you know, someone who uses the internet every day, like my grandmother, can't explain to me how the internet works, but uses it every single day to go do grocery shopping or find where to go on GPS. I'm trying to figure out how are we going to integrate these things into our society to where it doesn't become like NFT. It becomes something that we are, it's how do we live without this technology?
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's so well said. Look, it's like back in, I don't know, the 70s, 80s, whenever like TCP was coming out and people were talking about that. Nobody can explain that today. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care. The internet just works magically. I think the blockchain, you're right, it's got to be the same. I think Starbucks was a good glimpse of that. And I also think they're going to be pioneering and showing like this disruption to sort of loyalty programs. But, you know, people who have the Starbucks app, they're going to be actively using the blockchain without really knowing that they're using the blockchain. So that's like a good sort of what you're alluding to. I think that's like a good glimpse of what's going to be coming in the future. I know when Apple gets in the game, it's 100% going to be that. But no, that's a great thought. Sheepy, Jeff, what do you guys think about that?
No, I think it's the same. You always see this generational shift. It's always, the parents don't understand. What is email? How does this work? As he said, my parents didn't understand. And it takes a good 5 or 10 years of it being in your face for them to be, well, your example is perfectly. They use it every day, but they don't understand it. And we are kind of even before that. We haven't even got to the stage where it's going to be used, it's going to be in the face before they get understanding. So it's still 15, 20 years until it maybe is an everyday thing. And I think just by, educating yourself and going through, because, well, I speak to my dad quite a lot about it. He's got into it and he says when he was younger, it was all about the computers coming in and he missed the opportunity on Apple. But now with this, he goes, okay, look, this is the same thing that happened when the MacBook came out, the first iMac. Computers started coming in and growing. It's the opportunity now for obviously the people listening to this, the people in the Metaverse Discord, all of us learning and growing and can help educate around us. And that's why having the Metaverse as a safe space for, like Roberto, your tweets about relating to the NBA is perfect. Helping people basically understand how it works instead of just diving into what is a blockchain is soft onboarding to then push it further. And then using gaming NFTs, using loyalty programs, Disney collectibles, it's the same way. It's how we're going to see this soft onboarding. As I said, that's the number one question. Whoever cracks that will be doing very well.
Yeah,
oh, my bad. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, one thing I was going to say is like there's this concept. I think you tweeted it out, Roberto, a while back about the great online game, where everything we do, like on this idea of like going online and tweeting or commenting or like just anything you do online creates this, creates something where it's either going to give you more opportunity in life or it might deter you from doing something but technically we're playing a great online game. And ideally what this is what's happening with the blockchain is that slowly we're going to be able to track more and more through the blockchain of how to play it the right way. And it's a very abstract thought, but the way I see it is these new platforms, whether it's a social media platform or whatever, or platforms that we use, are going to slowly start integrating the blockchain. And I think this is like what I think you mentioned, like 15 years. I think that's a good prediction, like 10 to 15 years until we really get into the Web3 and really live in a fully Web3 immersive, experience. Because right now, even though we talk about Web3, we're still not there. And I think there's even the platforms that are using it. Like, for example, if you talk about, let's just OpenSea is the one that's mostly being used right now. Like, I try to invite people to use OpenSea, and I still have to get on a call with them and explain to them, like, okay, you need to set up your MetaMask. Okay, you need to set up like how to buy crypto, and there's all these steps and all this friction where it's really hard to have like mass adoption right now. But somebody's gonna crack it, and when it happens, it's gonna happen like from one day to another, and it's you got to be in it.
What you said is so true, man. I've seen and found so many parallels. And I do think like the blockchain is in a sense like a real life MMO. ATL made a good point, man. I want to get back to this because like I find this so fascinating. It's all in the behavior of the under 16 crowd, right? They're on Roblox, Minecraft. They're buying skins on Fortnite, NBA 2K, whatever it is. And like these are the same people who hate NFTs. And I'm wondering like ATL, like your kids are probably swiping your credit cards, buying the latest gear, digital items for whatever their avatar in 2K. And we see this all the time. There's tens of billions of dollars a year transacted on digital items within these gaming experiences that people don't actually own. It's still owned by the corporation, the company. Yeah. And so what do we like? What kind of education or narrative shift do we need in order for gamers to start realizing, hey, it's the same shit that we're buying right now, that we're spending millions and billions of dollars on. Like what kind of education do you need? Like your kids, how would we be able to switch them believers into NFTs?
So I have a cousin who is like really into Steam, and he said that when he plays games on Steam, he accumulates digital assets for playing, like I guess like medals or awards, like skins, guns, whatever. So it's slowly getting him to understand that like this thing has monetary value on some level. Like he can't cash it out for cash, right? But now he's not putting his hard-earned money into the game to get these skins, to get these guns, to get whatever it is, right? So I think it's the tokenomics has to be kind of explained to them as far as like how do we get, the VC to turn into real money? Because I think like right now, like money is what talks to everybody. As much as we all like jump into these projects because we believe in it, we also want to flip some of these things so we can create that generational wealth that we're talking about, right? So I think,
by the way, oh, sorry, I thought you finished your point. My bad.
No, what I was going to say is like, when I'm talking to Adrian, our son, and I'm explaining to him about the NFT collections we have, like I've talked to him about John Doe, I've talked to him about NV3, I talked to him about these projects and what they're trying to do long term, but then I try to relate it back to something he understands, like in the scope of like a Fortnite or me and him play a lot of NBA 2K. We like building players, and it's like, do you want to build a player on your own merit and just go and play the game? Or do you want to throw some money into the thing and like be able to build your player quickly, right? So it's trying to explain to them in terms of things they understand already. So
that's smart. I like that.
It's trying to like show him, because like, Sheepy has blessed us with one of his access codes for Valhalla, because I've already been accepted to get, whitelist. But, the more I thought about it, I was like, I want to keep mine. So I want to be able to have him jump into this thing that we're doing on a level of something that he understands, right? When you are buying an NFT, you should be looking at the art, you should be looking at the founders, you should be looking at things that you like relate to, because that gives it value to you. Who cares about floor price, right? So that's what I'm trying to show him, is that like when you're looking at like these things that we're going to invest in, like it should be something that you're investing your time and your energy into. You know what I'm saying? It's something that you should enjoy. It shouldn't just be about quick flips. And I don't like judge anyone for flipping. I try to flip things too when I see that a project's hot and I can try to make some money. That's, what we do as DGens. But we need to start like, you've been saying that like these brands shouldn't just be hype, right? These brands are companies. These brands are IPOs. These brands are something that is going to bring value to society, and not just like, it's a cash grab, make someone some money. Just because like the Bored Apes were able to do what they did in the beginning. They've built into a brand now. They've built into something that is like viable and that like people are investing in with like real money, right? And they're really putting work into like Yuga Labs doing what they're doing with their like Other Worlds lands and all that. Like that's big for other spaces in the NFT market. You know what I'm saying? You got people building on those things because they built value. It isn't just about like what's hot and what's cool. That, you'll get into a thing because it's really cool and you think it's a cool brand. But once you start seeing the business side of it, and can they really create a clothing brand? Are they really working on a gaming system? Like, what are they actually working on? What are they actually building? And that's one thing that I've enjoyed. Like, I've had my ups and my downs in this. I got to the metaverse November of last year. So I've had my ups and my learning curve of like trying to jump in and, buy some hype stuff and then realize like, what the hell did I just put my money into? Right. And now in the bear market, not everything is pumping, not everything's moving, but the things that I'm putting money into now are things that 5 or 10 years from now, like my kids are going to be able to retire because I put my money into the right things of someone who was building something in this space and being able to like give back to the creators, give back to the community. One of the best things I love about Web3 is the like space we've created in the metaverse. Being able to go in there and talk and like bounce ideas off people that like are like-minded and are trying to learn and are trying to like genuinely help people. Like that's what it's about. The Sheepy stream on Wednesday is all about information. It's all about like helping people learn and helping people like understand this thing that we're doing right now in Web3, right? And that's what we should all be doing. If you see someone's trying to get into us, like Jeff was saying, you want to put somebody onto something and you got to go and, okay, let me walk you through MetaMask. Let me walk you through going. And I try to take the time because people took the time with me when I first got into it, right? So that makes me want to take the time to like show someone else. And that's what to me is the biggest thing about Web3 is community, man.
I love that, man. I mean, 2 quick thoughts, and then I got a question to pose to Sheepy. But the first is like you're right. Money's actually important. I don't ever knock people for. I mean, money's part of the equation. There's 3 incentive structures. That's it. There's financial incentive, there's social incentive, and there's moral incentive. I think with NFTs, obviously you want to aim for all 3, but like the 2 biggest ones are financial and social. And like you said, the community aspect is so underrated. People toss this word around community, but it's so important to have a group online who all have each other's backs, who share the same ideals, who are all, invested or passionate about the same thing, that support one another on the internet. I think that's so important, that support, that social structure. And the other quick point is like, I never knock anybody for flipping either, because that's part of the game. Like I've always said, there's 2 types of sort of NFTs trades. One is the casino type. I love the casino. I'll never knock anybody for using NFTs as a casino. It's like, hey, we've created our own casino. That's pretty dope. Like whatever, if you want to be a degen, as long as you know that more than likely you're gonna get destroyed. The house is always gonna win. As long as you know like that money you're probably parting with forever and it's gonna go into a grifter's pocket. That's cool. As long as you know what you're getting into. And then there's the other side of it where it's like I'm invested in so many projects that I will never sell unless they stop working on it. Because like I'm a long-term guy, I'm always long-term thinker, long-term vision, and so I agree with you, ATL. Like a lot of the stuff that I hold in my vault, I don't care what happens in the next 5 years. I'll look again in 5 years. Sheepy, the question that I had for you, like one thing that I'm seeing, this trend that I'm seeing in the NFT space, right? Like Doodles raises $50 million, which is insane, and their floor just kind of stays still. That's interesting to me because I think what's happening is that people are starting to realize, wait a second. Good for the Doodles founders, good for the brand, good for the team, Doodles to the moon, all this. But like, what does that mean for me as a holder? How is this going to accrue value to me? Is this just a token that speculates on the performance of the brand, or am I actually invested into it in more than just that speculation? What do you think about that? Do you think projects have to trend towards like real ownership? Because it's interesting watching that happen.
It's a very interesting thing. I said we've seen it with many projects where they say, okay, we have a big announcement, we raised all this money, and then floor price doesn't go up or it doesn't change, and people take that as a surprise. People think that's a bit bearish. But as I said, I think as people are starting to realize, okay, maybe we don't have actual ownership. Like most of these brands that are doing it have been around a year. What have they realistically achieved in this 1 year? That has meant that I'm benefiting off it. Like, what has Doodles done in the year since it's launched? That would help me. And they just feel more money coming in the ecosystem. Yes, it may help them expand, but people feel that like that they want to attract other people. But the way I'm judging projects, I talk about this floor price. They're low at the lows. People aren't buying. We aren't having external money coming in. But now it's been a year into these projects. You can see what they've achieved. You can already see, have these people actually done something? If you go in their Discord, on their Twitter, do they have people still engaging? And that's where I think, as I said, you go from the speculative, you have the people then betting on the teams towards the actual ownership. We know, I think people are scared to go for the actual ownership route at the moment. We've seen whispers of the legalities coming in, of how it's going to be affected. But I still think you can set yourself up to follow that route by introducing some form of tokenomics, not in the way it's maybe been done, a slightly different version can do that. I don't think in the way they are now, they can be used as value tokens, because a 10K collection isn't that big. Say, as I said, we've always discussed saying if an investor comes in, should they have to buy up half the floor? If they buy 20% of your company, should they then own 20% of those NFTs? That's the way it's not seen. And a lot of these investors, VCs coming in, if you said, yeah, you've only got 10K and we want you to buy up a lot of them, it'd be difficult to persuade them. And it's where the money shift is coming from. Quite a lot of these VCs are traditional ones seeing an opportunity here. They aren't Web3 born and bred. They're not people who maybe understand what the owner of the NFT is. Obviously, they're looking to make their money. But we will see different cases. But I think it has now shown that, because we look back 6 months, it was all about, oh, don't need VC funding. VC funding is a bad thing. I don't think we've seen even a good case of VC funding yet. As I said, we're still too early to really see what will come out. If Doodles end up, after raising 50 million, they just hired, I think, 30 jobs, get the top talent around. They're set up for success then. But then how does that relate back to the holder? Especially with Doodles, I think they're a great example. Their plans is Doodles 2. What they discussed is anybody can own a Doodles and customize it. How does that make original holders feel? But I think people are just blinded from the all-time highs. I invested at this point, over-invested during the bull run. That's where the difficulties come in. And whether people knew Doodles were probably preparing the announcement. Was it already priced in? Was the ones that were already priced in didn't have the external buy for the people who were selling off because they expected more? I still think we have such a small handful of examples to really see how it is going to affect.
That's a good point, man. I mean, a lot of it is just that it's early. I want to shout out real quick. If anybody's in the audience, you want to chime in, you want to come up, ask a question or comment, just call in and we'll get you up here. But Jeff, what are your thoughts on that, man? Is the onus on the project to make sure that they're always accruing value for their holders, or should they just be focused on building the brand and the value for the holders will come long term?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of when a collection has a clear vision of what they're doing. Reason why I love MV3, Clonex with Artifact, where they're just building digital collectibles, and you can see it month to month, their vision and how they're executing. Like for me, that means a lot more than almost anything. I think we get so blindsided by, the hype sometimes. But when you really pay attention to what's happening and how clear the vision is for the founders and what is every step they're doing getting them towards closer to that vision, or what is it that they're really doing? So that's the way I perceive things. I sometimes when somebody raises like Doodles, they raise X amount of money for what? I don't personally know what they raise the money for, so I'm just ignorant in that part. But when you see a founder raise funds and they're using it strictly to continue building that vision, and you start seeing them execute, that's when it gets really exciting. So I don't know. We're still too early to tell, but that's what gets me excited about when somebody raises funds.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. The most important thing that you said is we're so early. We are too early. Like I can. For MV3, I can speak for MV3. Like the grand vision is strong, but I feel like a broken record saying it. But we are waiting for the regulatory chips to fall. We got to figure out how the SEC is going to classify these things and some other legislative issues to be ironed out. But like my big dream, my sister and I, J-Mays, when we started MV3, was like, look, James, you've done this a million times before. Let's create the most iconic, timeless characters and storylines and world building that we can. Eventually, this can become, and I really believe, I'm like 98% certain that it will become a TV show or a movie. That can then translate into so many other IP opportunities, whether it be, merch, physicals, theme parks. Like the list goes on and on. Like a Marvel or a Disney started from Web3. And then you take a percentage of profit that IP generates and share it with the holders. I think the best way to do it right now is via an underlying token. And again, we have these conversations with the lawyers all the time. Like Sheepy, you made a point. Like people are scared because there's no legal sort of way to do it. There's a lot of people out there putting out tokens, but we still don't know, like, shit, are these going to be classified as securities or not? But I usually hate tokens just because the liquidity pool is only filled with the greater fool's theory. Hey, can I make somebody else buy in? But if that liquidity pool is generated via a brand revenue from a real brand in a worldwide global IP, then I think that becomes really interesting. And that's why we're doing the RPG mechanic, because how are we going to distribute in the future? How are we going to airdrop these tokens? Okay, we need like some sort of score to then be able to assign like how much. But like, again, like people are scared because there's no real way to do it. In our conversations with our lawyers, there's like, okay, there's nothing. We can like model it after other tokens who are, and I don't know exactly the specifics, but are generally in Singapore. They do like some filing in Singapore and then something else going on in the Caribbean. And like, this is how a lot of the tokens that we know and love and use today, ApeCoin is an example. This is how they're doing it. And so it gets tricky, but it's okay. It's early. And I think 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, once we have the clarity, then we can do something really, really major. And I think some mega operators, Gary Vee is an example. I would be like, once the regulation falls into place, I would be shocked if he doesn't take a percentage of profits that all of his business generate and share it with his holders. I think that's what the real builders in the space are all going to be trending towards. But if anybody wants to opine on that, ATL, what do you think?
Well, I mean, excuse me. When we talk about tokenomics, it's funny you mentioned ApeCoin. I just invested in this small little project where it's a gaming PvP, and they're giving people a passive income through ApeCoin. So what they're doing is they're piggybacking off an established token already and using that as the basis for their tokenomics. Because I'm really into gaming. I don't get to do it much anymore, but I understand like the draw and the pull to it. So when I start seeing some of these gaming NFTs, I'm interested in. I try to invest where I can. But for me, the reason those things don't ever work is because, like you said, it's the greater fool's theory. For this token to pump, more people have to buy into it and put money into it, right? So what they did, piggybacking off of ApeCoin, I'm not sure if that's going to be like a model that other gaming NFTs look into, to where instead of trying to do their own thing on their own tokenomics or their own VC that you're buying all their stuff with, are they going to just piggyback off of some layer 2 coin that is blasting off? If you can find a way to attach yourself to an already established NFT or already established market, the way they did with ApeCoin and Bored Ape Yacht Club, like that's just a smart way of trying to make sure that your liquidity pool stays intact. Because that's the thing with a lot of these gaming NFTs. You get in there, you start playing the game, and you start getting all this VC, and then you don't spend it on any items in the shop. You just say, hey, how can I cash this out into money? Because I got to go pay my car note, And you had games like, I forgot what the game was that was really big out in Korea. That was
Axie Infinity.
Axie
Infinity, yes. Where people were just like at home, hanging out, playing this game, and then pulling out money from it to pay their bills. And I think that is, if we can figure out the tokenomics behind it, that is the future to gaming to me. You have so many streamers that are on there, like literally living off of the kindness of strangers. You know what I'm saying? Like someone who's watching you play a game and enjoys either how you game or how you interact with the community and giving you some money out of their own pocket, right? So there is a way for this to work. It's just finding a way. One of the things that interests me about Valhalla is that they are going to try to do a streaming thing to be the competition to Twitch. Because I feel like Twitch also does like a lot of things that are too controlling over what they're trying to do. If you have creators giving you content and creators funding your platform, they should be getting a bigger piece of the pie. There should be a way that we can figure out this tokenomics thing without having it shouldn't be a no-sum game, right? It shouldn't be for me to win, you have to lose, right? The whole we all go making thing is something we all buy into. And I really do think that like for you to succeed, I can succeed too. There's enough space in this thing that we're doing right now for all of us to win because we're all super early. It's just trying to figure out how we can keep that liquidity pulled together as far as tokenomics and keep people going in that same direction. You know, everyone wanted to buy into a thing. And when things like right now happen where the bear market hits and, you know, everyone's leaving the space, how serious were you about this thing to begin with, right? Was it really all about the money to you, or did you really believe in community? Did you really believe in like changing the greatest generational wealth gap, like making that smaller? Like how are we moving the space forward, and how are we able to like make that our goal and not just like have it be about money?
Yeah, well said, man. And a lot of people, for better or for worse, we're only here for money. I don't think that's a bad thing, you know, whatever. They'll all be back, by the way, the next bull run. It'll be funny, like the old faces that we know and love. But Sheepy, man, I want to hear your thoughts on what we were just talking about.
I think it is. I said it's all setting yourself up for success. I said we aren't there now, and people have got to be careful. You can't jump into stuff now or put all your eggs in one basket. As I said, the perfect example, your gaming NFT jumping on ApeCoin. That's great because they could probably always pivot that. Depending how it's built, they could pivot that to their own blockchain, to a different coin or a different version. And that's why I get a bit worried about these projects that have set up their own native token. And maybe it's so intertwined with what they're doing because we are so early. I don't think people are really zooming out as much, thinking, look, what you may be working in these 6 months today won't be working. You need to have the flexibility to pivot. Or maybe, as I said, what MB3 are looking to do is say, look, we will build up what we want to do. We will get ready where we can. So when the opportunity is there or when we know it's a bit more certain, it's all set to go. And these people that have jumped in early may suddenly drown, not be able to have the malleability of switching to a new chain. Maybe we'll see another coin coming through. But I'd like to, as Jeff or Roberto, I think about being able to be flexible on that point in these projects who have maybe committed early and hope to buy in the buyers now.
Yeah, dude, there's one thing that like I've been thinking about, and it goes back to the royalty debate, right? And so it's like the grand plan is to have this underlying token and to share some of those profits with but like that really only works from a business perspective if that royalty is in place, right? Otherwise, the way that you have to do, like the way that you accrue value, not only for holders, but also for the brand itself, is to continue minting more NFTs, a secondary, a tertiary collective, and so on and so forth. And that just goes back to my old point where I was saying it's like, that's another reason in itself why I think 0% royalties are so negative for consumer in the long term and for brand, and especially for artists. So all really, really interesting thoughts. I want to shout out the people in the audience. Like I said, if you guys want to call in, just hit ATL. How did it work? Was there like a call in button or?
So I couldn't do it on my phone. I had to get on my computer. And then once I logged in, there was a thing where I could ask a question. So I put the link and I asked the question, and then I pressed the green phone button and it let me jump in.
Jeff, what else is on your mind, man? Like trends that you're seeing here in the NFT market. Like what else has been on your mind when taking a look at the macro environment?
Well, me personally, I've been looking a lot into the AAA games, launching or being built, especially in the next coming year. I think it's exciting to see, just because like the big, like this whole gaming community, millions and millions of users are already like technically, using NFTs. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about like the builders in the space right now. I'm not going to mention any names. I don't want to shout out any names because I feel like I think everybody should do their own research.
No, you can. Just, NFA, DYOR, all that. But if you want, man, you can always mention names.
Well, I'm doing an episode on the Exorians Universe.
Yeah.
So they're building a AAA game. Thomas Vu is part of it. And a bunch of other names that will come out on the actual.
Yeah, it's going to be a dope episode, man.
Yeah,
I got
the
a
actual
glimpse
episode
into that. It's going to be dope.
So I'm excited about what they're building. But there's a lot of other AAA games that are being built in very similar cases where it's built on lore, it's built on story, it's built on characters, it's built on a concept. one of the reasons that Axie Infinity failed was not just because of what you mentioned earlier, ATL, but it also was just not fun to play. There was no story behind it. So, I think there's
objectively, it was just not a good game. Like,
yeah,
it's just. But it was an awesome glimpse into what's possible, and they're still going to be building. But like that first iteration, objectively, like I don't even think it's subjective. It was just not a fun game,
Yeah, not a fun game. So so I'm excited about that. That's those are just some thoughts. But there's so much being built right now. I'm just excited overall, man.
Yeah, man. I mean,
I've got a question for you, Jeff. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to make a quick point. When it comes to AAA gaming, that's one of the reasons we actually chose to go 3D. 3D is like super ambitious. It's not everybody's like taste or whatever, but one of the reasons why is because, dude, gaming is going to be the absolute biggest on-ramp for new participants into crypto. And like these 3D games, we're doing like the entire body of our 3D models, and we're approaching it with the interoperability standards in mind. So you're going to be able to log in and actually use as your skin, as your character, like MV3 characters in a lot of these AAA games that are embracing interoperability. I think that's dope. But go ahead, Sheepy. My bad for interrupting.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Jeff, and kind of as you touched on earlier about influencers and the state of influencers at the moment. I said what you're doing with Docs, you're meeting so many incredible people, meeting people who are maybe voices of the community, voices in the space on Twitter. And as I said, we've seen people, the entertainment, people are becoming Web3 celebrities overnight through either shit posting, just posting on Twitter. But I want to see what you see as a creative for either will this be longevity for them? Will they have to pivot into it? Or is it just something to pass the time at the moment and these people are just going to be irrelevant in 2, 3, 4 months?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in like playing the long game, having density and real connection to your community. So obviously there's arbitrage opportunities with every so often. And if you can turn those audience members into a real community, then there's a big opportunity for you. But me personally, this is my personal. I'm not like as a creator. I don't want to be famous. I don't desire to be famous. I just want to have a connection to what I'm passionate about. People that are passionate about what I'm passionate about, I want to be connected to them. And if I in turn become an influencer because of that, then so be it. But I'm not. I'm not a big fan of this shit posting or meme posting and all this. But I'm also like all for it too. Like if somebody wants to arbitrage that and find a way to it maybe changes their life, they find an opportunity to that, then it's also a blessing for them. So it's just a game, man. The great online game.
Exactly, man. Nah, shit posting. It's like, look, love it or hate it, memes and shit posting is probably the most effective way to communicate on the internet. Here's the thing with the shit posters, all right? You spend all day building an audience on Twitter. There's only one thing that you're building towards is you're building towards influence to trade your time for cash or building your own product. But eventually there's going to be like this liquidity event, right? And they're going to recruit all of this money from their followers, from this audience, after years and years or month or whatever building an audience. Then it's like, all right, now it's time to get some money from these followers. And here's the thing. Usually if you're on Twitter 8 to 10 hours a day, you're just really building hype. You're actually not building a product. Right. And so more than likely that level of hype, that level of like shit posting, whatever, those tactics are unsustainable long term.
Yeah, exactly.
So what will happen is like their audience will probably lose, unfortunately, long term. Yeah. And then what happens is, because I've seen this a trillion times in a ton of industry. Then what happens is their brand is no longer like this friendly, happy, joyous, vibey, memey, shit posty brand. It's like, hey, you fucked me. I lost money because of you. And then their stock comes all the way down. So like that's why like all these shit posters on Twitter, I'm not necessarily bullish on them long term, just because I've seen this game play out a million times before. Build something useful, build something substantial, bring value to your audience. Because what's going to end up happening, shit poster X, they're going to build a project, they're going to do something, some sort of liquidity event, and then those tactics aren't sustainable long term, and their community will lose money on it. That's my opinion, unfortunately. What do you guys think about the shit posting sort of meta though on Twitter?
I think, as he said, it's not sustainable. Like, it's fun now, but they may then look back in 3-4 years saying, why was I saying this stuff? Or you always kind of regret, as he says, everything you post, it's on the internet then. You get screenshotted, you get seen. And I think, as he said, people building projects, and I think these people, can build careers off it. You've seen some of the top meme makers like Thread Guy working for Azurbola. He's in charge of social strategy. Well, we won't talk about how they approached the past few weeks, but they're working on it. But I think he's now building a name of, obviously, his name outside, but then linking it to a project. So instead of him being the liquidity under his branding, he's attaching himself to use his skills. Because there's no doubt these people who have gained 100,000 followers in a few months have a good skill. And it's just how they can then use it without using their followers as liquidity. And it'd be interesting to see, as we say, we all see the TikTok, YouTube dilemma of TikTok people may have 10 times as many subscribers or, followers on TikTok, but they convert a tenth of the revenue of a YouTuber. And is how that conversion will work, whether you move to other platforms. We've seen great people, K-Money. I'm throwing these names out. A great example. He started up his own podcast, his own show, interviewing people. Exactly. And he's shifted away from his edgier content now because he's built up that audience to actually providing a bit more value. And this is where short term, look, it's hype. As I said, hype building. You build hype, build followers quickly, but then they need to be smart enough to transition this into something that can maybe not detriment their career in 5-10 years, or they look back to regret it.
Beautifully said, man. Look, it's an attention economy, so I get it, right? Like, the more attention that you can garner, the more economic potential that comes on the backs of that. But you got to do it the right way. There's no better person in the world than Mr. Beast. By the way, I've been saying he will become, within a few years, the most valuable entertainer to ever exist. I mean, like, more than Michael Jackson, Jay-Z, Beyonce, you name it, he will become the most valuable entertainer to ever exist on this planet in humanity's history. I also do think that he has the greatest distribution platform on the planet today as well. I think but that's why he doesn't show anything. What he does is goes and creates his own brands and his own businesses and his own companies that are all going to exit for billions of dollars because they're doing it the right way. They're delightful. And so that's what, like, K-Money's doing it in an awesome way. He's using his influence for a podcasting show and other things like that. I think that's really dope. So I think that's well said. There's a lot of people in the chat. I see a bunch of people in the chat, and they're actually typing. All right, let me shout out some people. ASAP Rose says, Jeff's picture is crisp. It is, man. Jeff's picture is crisp. Sketch is saying, is this a recording or is this live? This is live. So if you guys are in the chat and you want to say what's up, come in, and we're going to give you a few minutes. Otherwise, we're going to be closing this soon. But closing thoughts, man. Let's go with you first, ATL. Any closing thoughts for today's chat?
This is why I'm in Web3, man. The fact that I'm having this conversation with Sheepy, with Jeff, with you don't find this anywhere else. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you go and you buy stock in Tesla, are you ever going to talk to Elon? You know, if you go buy some Amazon stock, you're ever going to talk to Jeff? Nah, man. But here I am having a really insightful and, like, concise conversation about real stuff that we're really interested in with the founder of a project that I'm, like, super into, with Jeff, who's got, like, a great content creator, and Sheepy, who gives us all this awesome information. The connection that I'm able to make through the NFT community is something that you really can't put, like, a dollar monetary value on. You know what I'm saying? Like, the friendships, the relationships, all these, like, connections that we're making is, to me, worth way more than what I've invested monetarily into these projects, man. So I commend you guys for doing what you're doing, man. I love everything that is MV3 and the metaverse, man. You guys are all about community first and about education. And honestly, that's something that I connect with on a real deep level, man. So I appreciate you guys, man. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Dude, the quality of your life is in the quality of your relationships. That's just facts. Agreed. The quality of your business prospects and careers is also in the quality of your relationship. The truest thing in the world is your network is your net worth. And so that's what I love about Metaverse MV3 communities. In 5 years, some of the big players in the space are like, those relationships are going to be very, very valuable. Sheepy, what do you think, man? Closing thoughts. Also, make sure to plug your socials and your show, man, because your show is underrated. People need to be knowing about the show. It's so much good alpha.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so I'll plug myself. I'm Sheepy. I go by Sheepy McGee on Twitter. So every Wednesday, I think it's at 3 p.m. Eastern time, I stream on the MV3 HQ Twitch. It's all about articles of the week, news. I usually have one big piece of education. I have questions from the audience, and it's all about trying to help people understand it simpler. How can I benefit? And the best thing out of me is not how many people listen in, it's if people learn something. ATL, one of the best examples. He's been following me on my streams from the beginning. I put him onto some NFT fantasy sports. and he managed to earn a bit of a bag off it. And just seeing stuff like that is great. And that's what I say as my closing thought. I always preach it: the space is still moving. The people that are here now are learning faster than in the bull market. You're not distracted by all these colorful PFPs. You're now learning. The people tuning in every week are the ones who are going to be front running this thing. And being able to have these conversations, being able to have a platform that we have to kind of preach this mentality, be surrounded by like-minded individuals, is very rare to find this anywhere else in an online space. And it said, it's moving. You may look at your bags are down, but things are still happening. It's still going to be something. We're not going anywhere. And we will kind of catch you for the next year, next 2 years. We'll still be here weekly catching up with you.
That part. Words from the legend himself. Listen, he also forgot a nice little fun, delightful part of the show is that we're going to be giving out an MV3 character every single Sheepy stream. And dude, you gotta stamp that, Sheepy, because I will guarantee if you listen to the Sheepy show, you're going to set yourself up very, very nicely for the next bull market. You're going to be a true beneficiary of it. Jeff, what are your thoughts, man? Closing thoughts tonight.
I mean, I'll piggyback off Sheepy, man. I think there's an opportunity for everybody and anybody that wants to get involved, whether you're an entertainer, influencer, or you're somebody that's a builder, developer. If you like to draw, if you like to paint, whatever it is that you like to do, whatever you're passionate about, Web3 there's an opportunity for you. And if you're at day 0, day 1, even better, man, because you got just nothing but great people that are really building right now, especially right now in this bear market, that are going to help you without expecting anything in return. And it's such a beautiful time to be part of the space. The reset button has been hit, and we're going to see the fruits of our labor in 2-3 years time, and it's going to be life changing for everybody. So I'm just excited about to be part of the community, man.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. For more conversations like this channel is going to be dedicated to covering emerging tech, emerging trends. Really want to get everybody watching in good position to take advantage of the next crypto bull run. So please subscribe, please like, share with a friend, comment, hit the bell, all that good stuff. It does really help, especially a new YouTuber like me. And with that said, catch you in the next video. Peace.